So my first deal was actually like a crazy story. And it just kind of goes to show you that sometimes, people don't want to go out of their way to, do extra work or distance or whatever it is. And when you first start, you kind of just have to grind it out. So I started on my team and there was an open house that was available. It was in Setauket, which is like 45 minutes to an hour away. And no one wanted to do it, obviously, because no one wanted to drive all the way out, 45 minutes to an hour away. But it was like one of the first month that I had started. And I figured the house was like $750,000 or $800,000. So I said to myself, if I go to this open house, I'm going to meet people who are going to spend $750,000 or $800,000. So if I don't sell this house, at least I'll be meeting people that have that kind of budget. At that time, I thought that was like the biggest budget in the world because I was just looking to get my first deal. I didn't really care how much it was. So went out there, did the open house, and it just taught me early on that one, don't ever judge anyone that walks into an open house. Don't ignore anyone. If they say they have an agent, don't disregard them saying, all right, I'm not going to make any money, so I'm not going to show them the house. Treat everybody the same and just treat them as if they could be a potential client, a potential referral, and just try to sell the house, right? So this lady walks in and shoes were dirty, baggy jeans on, again, you make these presumptions like, this person's just kind of looking, they're not serious about buying the house, because she was asking me a million questions, but she was all over the place. So it wasn't how many bedrooms or how many bathrooms. It was like weird questions like, can I fit my armoire in here? Or can I do this? Or can I do that? And she had just walked in the house. So I thought maybe she's interested because she's asking all these questions, but at the same time, she's kind of all over the place. And she was asking me about, do the doors all have alarms on them? Does each door ring when it opens? And, I was kind of saying to myself, there's got to be a reason why she's asking me all these questions. So just try to get to know her a little bit. She asked me one question about, maybe the square footage of the house. And it was in Suffolk County. And in Suffolk County, very difficult to get the square footage on the house because their public records aren't as good as Nassau County. So I said, it's not my listing. But I said, I'll call the listing agent. I'll get back to you. She asked me another, million questions, wrote everything down. I called, the guy that had the listing. And I asked them a bunch of questions. I called her back in like 15, 20 minutes, and she was ecstatic on the phone. And I'm like, I'm just answering your questions. I thought this was my job, but all right, if you want to make it seem like I'm going out of my way that much, then I'll take it. And she said to me, I've been going to these open houses for months. I ask questions all the time and no one ever gets back to me. She goes, I just want to say thank you because you actually got the answers for me and got back to me, within a half an hour. Most of these people never get back to me within a week. And I said, all right. I said, now that you have the information, I said, what do you think about the house? And she said, I actually like it a lot. She said, the reason I was asking all those crazy questions was because I have 3 kids that are on the autism spectrum. And I said, oh, wow, I can sympathize with that. I said, I actually run a charity for kids that are on the autism spectrum. I know it's, not always easy. She said, I'm a single woman. I'm a widow. My husband passed away, say 10 years ago. And she said, I've had these kids now by myself for the last, 10 years or so, and it's difficult. And she said, I have to worry about my son because, he'll just leave the house. And she's like, in my current house, I have alarms all over the place so that when the doors open, I know if he's going in and out of the house, it alerts me, and I at least know, all right, I got to go and I got to get my son. He left out of one of the doors if it wasn't locked. So it was nice because we kind of created that bond there. And then she says to me after about, I like the house. She said, but I actually have to sell my house if I want to buy this house because I need the money from that home to put in, to buy this home. And would you be able to do that for me? So that is like the ultimate thing you want to hear when you're at an open house, right? You want to meet someone and you want to hear that they have to sell their house. So this was just good luck. It was, the right timing, right place, and sometimes it's just the right person, right? So she connected with me. She felt comfortable with me. I was at that appointment with another agent. So now we had to go on that appointment together. So we actually ended up going on the appointment with one of the other guys that runs the team, got the listing. Her listing was for $1 million. It was in Belterre, which is like a really nice neighborhood on the North Shore in Suffolk. It wasn't waterfront, but water view. It was right on the water, but like there was roads separating it. So beautiful, beautiful house. That ended up being probably one of the easiest transactions I've ever had, because we had to go take the pictures. And 5 years ago, 6 years ago, you used to be able to upload everything and put it on as an exclusive. And you could still do that now, but you never got as many calls. You used to get a lot more calls. So I actually had someone from Bayside call me, from the Bayside Douglas Elliman office, and they said my client in China saw the property as an exclusive and he wanted his nephew to come see it. Can I come see it? I said, yeah, I'm taking the pictures on Wednesday. The nephew met me with the agent, full price offer before we even took the pictures. And now, that was a great thing. But what we had to do now is get her a house. So it just so happened the house I originally met her at was available. So went back to the house, made the deal on that house. We end up finding out that there wasn't a final permit, CO issued for that home. It was a new construction house and the owners just had never gotten the final sign off. Now, it wasn't my listing. I was new in the business. I didn't know to go check these types of things. And, now we had to navigate this. And getting the final sign off on a new construction house is not the easiest thing to do. It could, sometimes it could take weeks, but more than likely it could take months. This guy was coming from China, basically putting his kids in school. It ended up getting to June, like the middle of June. This deal was going on for like 4 months. And he had already enrolled his kids in the school program. He was paying cash, so he didn't have to worry about a mortgage. He called me and the broker called me and said, Mike, if we don't close on this house in the next 2 weeks, he has to pull out of the deal because he's got his kids in school, enrolled in the school district now. He has to find another house in that school district. We had to jump through like a ton of hoops to get this done, but we got the sign off. We got her house sold for $1 million, and then we got the other house also closed out, all the permits, got that sold. And it was just like a great experience because I had to like really be hands-on. The other person that did the open house with me really did not help at all. Was kind of absentee throughout the whole process. So I just saw it as an opportunity where I'm thinking, wow, this is how every single deal is going to go from here until the end of my career. Like, this is not going to be easy. This was a special circumstance. Definitely not every deal goes like that, but it just taught me so much that you just have to figure these things out sometimes. You don't always know what you're doing, but you kind of just navigate the waters and kind of figure it out. And also taught me that never judge a book by its cover, because her walking in kind of a little bit crazy, dressed the way she was dressed and, kind of looking a little disheveled. Now, once I met her, I kind of get why. She's got 3 kids who she cares for that are not easy and, take up a lot of her time, a lot of her strength and a lot of her energy. And she's just looking to do what's best for her family. And also just never turning down an opportunity because you think you're above something or you don't want to go out of your way. Driving 45 minutes to an hour to do an open house isn't the most ideal thing to do, but when you're new in the business and you have no business, I saw it as an opportunity and it just ended up kind of working out. What's crazy is you would think from this deal, I made like tons and tons of money, because you're talking about $1 million sale, you're talking about like an $800,000 sale. It ended up being probably like $36,000 in commission. So for a first deal or two, those are great commissions, but I had to split it with the person that I was at the open house with, and then I had to break it up with my team, and then I had to break it up with the company. So from a $35,000 transaction, I probably ended up with like $4,000 or $5,000 in my pocket. But the way I looked at it is, one, you got to pay to play, and I learned a ton. I was asking the guys that I worked for a ton of advice on, how do I do this? How do I do that? And then I also had to navigate just how do we get these permits? How do we manage 2 deals at once? And, how do I manage the client and her expectations? So that deal, even if I made no money, I think it was probably the best first deal or 2 that I could have gotten, because it just threw me into the lion's den. And one, made me realize that this business is not easy. Some deals end up being cookie cutter, easy peasy. And then there's going to be deals like this where you're going to have to earn your money and you're really going to have to work and you're going to have to problem solve. And there's going to be things that kind of get thrown left and right. And in addition to all the issues we had to deal with, her attorney was a divorce attorney who was a pit bull. He was always in court. He was never available. And again, that was my first experience with an attorney. So I didn't know that most real estate deals weren't performed like this. Every time I spoke to him, screamed at me on the phone. I used to save the voicemail. I'm upset that I deleted it because I would play it for you now. I've never been screamed at like this in my life by anyone, but the client was on my side. She knew that I had her back, and she knew this guy was trying to protect her, but actually didn't really know what he was doing because he was more worried about people in divorce court than her real estate deal. So that was not only my first and second deal, but also probably my best deal, and just from like an experience point of view, and happy that it was on the beginning of the career. And I'm sure I'll run into more of those down the line, but for a first go, I think that was the best thing that could have happened to me.